So we had this sort of follow light here to make this sort of follow this chomper, but we can actually set up some really cool animations. And so now what we're going to do is I'm going to get into DOTween. And I feel a little bad because DOTween is massively powerful, and I've not come up with as compelling of examples as I would have liked, because everything I wanted to try just kept me spiraling more and more into like craziness, the cool stuff. So, but I want to have a good, simple enough representation of the asset. So, but do know that some of the stuff that I'm going to show, like you can do so much with DOTween Pro. It's insane. And so here's what I'm going to do. So, and oh, you know, I'm going to unparent that light there as well. So I'm going to, first off, I'm going to make this light rotate with DOTween here. So I'm going to go ahead and first off, I'll set its rotation to be like a negative 135. So there we go. And I also want to move it a little bit. It was bothering me that it wasn't quite center there. And then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to add a component. So add component, DOTween, and I'm going to add a DOTween animation. And what's really cool is, I mean, I can do all sorts of animation stuff, right? I'm going to go with kind of a simple one for right now. I'm going to go with a rotate, and there's my rotation, and my duration, I'll leave that just as a, you know, actually I'll set that to 3 to make it a little bit slower. And for my ease, I have all these different easing operations. I can move it linear, so it'll just move stiffly. I can do sine. I can do, quartz. I can do just all sorts of bounces. I can create my own animation curves for this. I'm going to do sine in or in-out sine, so it'll do a sine smoothing both inward and outward there. So nice and smooth. And for loops, I'll set my loops to -1, so it loops indefinitely. And what type of loop? I'll set this to yo-yo. And I want this to go from the -135 rotation on the z-axis to +135. And there we go. And so I will hit play. And so that has generated an animation for me. And the neat thing here is that instead of authoring animations with, like, say, like the animation window in Unity, using like keyframes and stuff like that, this is all easily changeable, extendable, you know, just through these different components. You don't need to dig into a lot of these other heavy systems if you want something simple, or if you want to be able to change something on the fly and whatever, right? And so it's pretty cool. Someone said, can you do rotation only with 2D without DOTween? Yeah, this spotlight here had some rotation, like to make it rotate it around. All right, so you can do some rotation with it. You can also make it look at some stuff. I just wanted to show how DOTween can do that. You can also do like platforms instead of animations. We can add like pathing, so I can make a platform move back and forth, or an enemy move back and forth, or whatever. Here's another kind of cool thing I want to show. So one of the neat things about DOTween Pro, as opposed to the DOTween sort of free regular version, is there's scripting access. All right, to some of the things we want to do. So we can actually code custom animations very simply. And that's a really powerful thing. So what I want to do is I'm going to add some code that's going to slow time when I stomp a chomper here. And so I'm going to come over here. I got Visual Studio right here. And this is the stompable CS class. This is part of Corgi Engine. So if I look at chomper, the chomper game object, and I see that chomper is stompable. That's stompable CS, so that's what this is. I've spaced everything out so no one's looking at Corgi Engine source code, just because, you know, I don't want to share source code because that's not cool. So this is just the beginning of the perform stomp method inside there. So I haven't added any custom code. I've just entered a bunch of spaces, so this stuff is spaced out. And I'm going to use DOTween now to add a slowing method to this, right? So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say time.timescale equals 0.25. So slow it down a quarter to a quarter amount, right? So normally it's 1, so I'm setting it to 0.25. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some DOTween kind of expression here. So I'm going to say DOTween dot to, so it's going to go to something. All right, 2, and this is going to be what's called a Lambda expression, which seems really confusing, but it's fairly pattern based. So it's kind of written the same way each time. It's not really super important to understand exactly why it's written this way. So I'm going to basically be moving my time.timescale. All right, and I'm going to move it with some variable that right now I'm calling x. And what that's going to do is that's going to do time.timescale all right, equals x, because that's the variable I'm controlling, and x is going to go to 1. So it starts at 0.25, and I want it to move towards 1 over 2 seconds. All right. And so there's that. And I forgot that that needs to have one additional parenthesis there. And so I'll say that. So basically, I'm doing 2, which is a method. Inside there, I'm passing a lambda expression, which basically creates sort of some logic for me. I'm moving my timescale, or I'm using timescale in the variable x. I'm setting timescale equal to x, and x is going to the value of 1 over 2 seconds. All right. Seems kind of confusing if you're not a programmer, but it's pretty straightforward stuff. And it's cool because I can do this to anything, right? So this is just going to slow time now when I stomp an enemy. And so I'll hit play. And I didn't have to write a custom class for this. I didn't have to, do any special time management or anything, and no custom animations or whatever. It's just all handled through the code. So I stomp, time slows down. All right. We could add camera shake. We could do all sorts of cool stuff. I can do bam. Nope, not quite far enough. So I need to put those closer if I want to do the double smash like Mario normally has. And so there's some cool stuff there. Like I said, camera shake, parallaxing, trees waving in the wind, all these neat tween animation UI stuff. Like I said, I barely scratched the surface of it here, and I don't feel like I did it justice because there's some really cool stuff in there. So take my word for it, man. There's the stuff you can do with DOTween is quite fantastic. But due to time, you got to keep it to be what it is. Someone asked in chat, couldn't you do this with a coroutine? Yeah, except you would have to write a coroutine and put it on a script that you've attached to something and then call it from something else, which means you have to have a reference and all that stuff. This just, does it. Right? So you can call from anywhere. I'm not suggesting that anything you can do with DOTween you couldn't do in other ways. It's just much simpler, which is what's really powerful about it. Does DOTween work with timeline? Sure. I don't know that they play off the exact same time scale as each other, but they can both be in a scene together, though I haven't done any interoperability with them. So maybe that's a question for the asset publisher there. Can you make the character walk with DOTween? Absolutely. It's just a series. You can either do it with a pathing or you can do the actual sprite changing with DOTween. I mean, you can do all sorts of stuff. Are the character scripts set up to pass XP to the player? Not currently. However, Corgi Engine has an inventory system, and I'm sure you could rig that for experience and stuff like that. So I'm sure you can make that work.